So, hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. So, super stoked to announce that today we have Cyan Banister who's joining us all the way from USA, and she's has a tremendous track record as an angel investor. But today we're going to be diving more into long journey ventures, which is the fun that she's kind of a GP or a part of. And so, yeah. So, hi Cyan. So, could you just talk us through what were the early days of long journey ventures to basically the launch of the fund, and also what's the investment thesis, fund size, anything that you want to share? Like, would love to know your insights on that.
Sure, yeah. So I, got started in investing as an angel investor, and then I was at Founders Fund for 4 years, which is one of the top tier investment firms in the world. And I decided that I wanted to go back to my roots and get back to the earliest stages of investing rather than focusing on Series A and Series B. So I co-founded Long Journey Ventures with my partner Lee Jacobs, and it was around almost precisely the beginning of the pandemic. And when we first started out, we just stuck to our roots, and we were just a high conviction, what we like to say was a federation of angel investors that got together and formed a small fund. And we wrote small seed stage angel style checks to basically establish ourselves and try to figure out how we work together. So our first institutional fund was the fund after that, which was about when we were coming out of the pandemic. And our thesis is chase the magically weird. One of the things that we determined after looking through our portfolio of the companies that performed the best with the outlying returns were the ones that when we invested, nobody else believed in. So they looked very unusual at the time. So for example, if you look at Uber, the number one thing that people would tell me when they didn't want to invest in Uber was no one's going to get into a stranger's car. Or Airbnb, no one's going to sleep in a stranger's house. Oftentimes, companies that seem very obvious today in the earliest days of their formation do not look obvious at all. As a matter of fact, it's very, very difficult to raise capital for them. It's very, very difficult to convince people that there's a there there, that founder can see the future. So we look for companies that are on the fringe, that are either magically weird or they're boring companies run by magically weird founders. And we are generalists, and so we're sector agnostic, and we tend to stick to early stage. Our fund size is not disclosed. However, we have an announcement coming out soon in the news with Bloomberg, and that will be in there, but I can't announce it right now because we're under embargo.
Amazing. So you have quite an inspiring journey. Like, you were homeless and then you got into this angel investing, then you got into VC. Now you kind of formalized that into a VC as well. So yeah, you're one of the inspirations for me, which is why I was so ecstatic when you agreed to come on the podcast, and super stoked to have you here. So just now, if we could get into some of the biggest wins or anti-portfolio, maybe, if you're comfortable, or we can just skip this question if you're not comfortable sharing anything on that front.
Yeah, our biggest wins at Long Journey so far have been Crusoe Energy. My partner Lee Jacobs wrote the very first seed stage check to Crusoe, and then he brought it to Founders Fund while I was there. Lee, my co-founder, and I met at AngelList long before I was at Founders Fund, so we have about a decade of co-investing experience together. And so he brought that to us, and right now I think, I'm not sure, you can look up the current marks in that company, but it's several billions of valuation, things like that are 3 billion or something close to that. And then Together AI, which is probably the fastest growing startup company in the world, which is basically you can use open source LLMs on it. We should check that out, but that's definitely one of our top positions. And anti-portfolio, I would say Whatnot. Whatnot is a shopping, live shopping app, which is something that we've seen take off in China, South Korea, Japan, and other countries, but hasn't really taken off in America until recently. When we have a company called Whatnot, and I invested in its competitor, which is PopShop Live, and so I would probably consider that in our anti-portfolio. But you can't win them all. Sometimes you get the timing. It was the right idea, but the wrong company.
Yeah, it was super cool to hear about your Andy portfolio as well. Like, not many VCs are like so open to like share that this is their Andy portfolio, this is their miss, and all that. So, just talk us through. Like, you've backed some amazing founders. So, what is one of those unexpected founder meetings that you've had, and where you went in without kind of any specific expectations, and they kind of blew you away? Like, is there any such instance that in your journey of long journey ventures, or even in your angel investing journey, like anything that you could share on that?
Well, I'm going to give you an unusual answer for that because I try to live my life without expectation. And I know that's going to sound kind of weird. But, sometimes people come up to me at conferences and they say, what do you expect to get out of this? What are your expectations? And I always kind of joke that I'm post-expectation. And the reason why is that every single meeting that I have has the potential to wow me. And I try to go into every meeting with a pitch, with a founder, with a very open mind, without any sort of preconceived notions about what they're going to tell me. And in general, last week I probably had the most shocking pitch of my lifetime because we're starting to get really, really weird with AI and with the advancements in biotech. And so in biotech, we're going to start seeing all kinds of really interesting therapeutics, medicines, nanotechnology, things where you're replacing organs, growing organs, all sorts of interesting things that I thought was just pure science fiction, but it's becoming reality. So in the next 10 years, we're going to be able to save people's lives in unprecedented ways. And so seeing founders come in dreaming big and not just trying to create another consumer application or a consumer product good, and really, really thinking about how they can save humanity and save people's lives has been remarkable to see. But in general, I don't have any expectations, and so every single meeting has the opportunity to blow me away, and they often do. I'm just in awe of founders who, obviously they're very smart people. They have a lot of choice of what they can do in the world, but they choose to work on whatever it is they're presenting to me. And so it's, I feel like I'm incredibly lucky to do the job that I do, to be able to wake up every day and listen to people's dreams and ambitions. And I have a small part to play in it where I provide capital, which I consider fuel for their endeavors. But in general, I know that's a weird answer, but I just try not to have any expectations.
That's amazing. That's amazing that you kind of go into it without any expectations, and most of the time you're kind of blown away. So what exactly do you look for in the people that you eventually go on to back, and like who has been one of those founders per se that you kind of have built this really strong conviction in, or any examples or anything that you could share on that front?
For like children, you're not supposed to have your favorite, but I'm going to just talk about John Hanke, who's the CEO and founder of Niantic, who made Pokemon Go, which I think is kind of known worldwide. It's a consumer application that did incredibly well. And he's probably one of my favorite founders I've ever worked with because he tends to lead from the background. He's not up in front and in your face. He tends to prop people up and promote people who, on his team into management positions and allows them to lead the way and coaches from behind. So he's not the center spotlight. Sometimes you find founders and CEOs they have a lot of ego or narcissism, and they want to be in charge or responsible for everything that comes out of a company. And that can work because you can have someone who's like Steve Jobs from Apple and who claims that every innovation is his. All of Apple is attributed to him. But obviously there are thousands of employees who contributed to Apple. And so I really like John Hanke's style. But what I look for, one important thing, which is, does that founder who's pitching me on the company have the unique capabilities to match the vision that they're trying to paint for me? And are they so compelling that I feel like I want to roll up my sleeves and quit my day job and work for them? Because one of the number one things that a founder has to do is market their company, sell to people, hire people, eventually fire people, raise money, and then navigate the business and the hardships around operating a company. So they have 1 hour to demonstrate that to me. And so if you come in and you waste a half hour talking about the weather or something else, and we don't really get into it immediately to where I'm within 10, 15 minutes of your pitch, the very first 10 to 15 minutes, I know whether or not I want to do the deal. It's very, very rare that I'm turned around by the end of the pitch. I pretty much have a good gut feeling, and I know how they address me, how they, manage their time, how they pitch me on the company, how they sell themselves. Their demeanor is going to give me a pretty good indication of what kind of leader they're going to be for the next 10 years. Because I back founders for 10, 20-year periods, and so and again, it's kind of daunting, but you have to make these decisions usually within 1 hour.
Well, that's impressive that you make that decision in such a short span of time, and you really rely on your gut and your instinct to kind of drive that initial, like whether you're going to actually invest or not. So that's quite cool to hear from an investor's perspective. And just lastly, if you could just kind of touch on the culture per se at Long Journey Ventures, like what qualities or experiences are essential for someone to become a part of your team, or just for someone to become a part of VC? Like, we know that VC is like a highly coveted job in this day and age, and so a lot of youngsters out there who might be tuning in today want to know, like, what are the soft skills that they need to kind of succeed in this industry?
Well, the most important thing in our industry, we're a lot like reporters. So if you think about a reporter who's trying to break a news story, they have to have secret proprietary sources for how they figure out how to find out that something's breaking anyway, right, in a story. VCs are very similar. So we work with a lot of scouts who are younger, mostly to give them check writing experience to see what kind of deals they can surface for us. And if any of those deals get turned into Series A or B opportunities, then obviously you can develop a track record as being a good source of deal flow and a good picker of companies that we wrote checks into. When I was at Founders Fund, a lot of the associates that started out with Founders Fund became partners. And you look at Scott Nolan or Brian Singerman, even as an intern, John Ludig started out as an intern, Charlie Vaughn, who went on to run Peter Thiel's seed stage efforts, all started out as interns. And so I think being willing to roll up your sleeves and grind, because the very first few years of venture capital, you're going to take thousands of meetings and write 0 checks. And so you've got to be able to really, really build up the stamina for meeting people and for hearing ideas, like in context shift, 8 to 10 times a day. You may in the morning hear something about a robot, and in the evening hear something about a consumer hardware thing that attaches to your terminal. Like, you have no idea what you're going to hear and what you're going to see. So if you're trying to break into venture, the name of the game is your network. So build a network and build a proprietary source of deal flow. And that could be by identifying the region that's underinvested in, like, maybe there's a place in South America or a region of the United States or a place in Africa or Asia that you figured out that there is a technology hub of people doing something really interesting that no one else knows. But try to identify something that no one else knows about and make it yours, because that's where all the alpha is, and you get very, very known for it. Like, if you look at Harry Stebbings, for example, who has a podcast called 20VC, he started out as a podcaster. He interviewed hundreds of operators and other VC, kind of like what you're doing, and eventually built a reputation for himself, and then raised a fund where he's investing primarily in European countries and founders. So identify something that you're very passionate about, go all in on it, and build that network, and eventually it just pays dividends. Like, all you have to do is have a scoop, just like a reporter, that no one else has, and if you can get that check in there, then it could have outsized 100x returns. You will establish a career in that way.
That is some amazing last advice, and Harry Stebbings is actually quite an inspiration for me as well. Like, he started when he was quite young, and then he went on to do this for so many years, and he's in it for the decade game, so like, he's really doing a really good job. And also, you're doing a good job with your fund and your angel investing and stuff like that. So now, do share like how the audience can get in touch, how they can learn like more about Long Journey Ventures, and yeah, we'll kind of end it off with that.
Yeah, I mean, you can always find out more about Long Journey Ventures on our website, longjourney.vc. And I'm on a lot of podcasts. I hear quite often, and so do my partners. We run an event that's going to happen in Hillsburg, I think is how you say the city name, which is called Edge Esmeralda, where thousands of people are coming out to live on the edge and build a temporary city where we imagine the future. So, we like to say that we chase the magically weird. A lot of ideas that look weird at the time become consensus later. So if there's a fringe place, that's probably where you're going to find us. But feel free to reach out if you have a company or if you want to talk to us more. And you can always find me on Exit.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, and I'll stop the recording now.
Thank you.